few years ago, I used to be a regular at a local cafe, and especially when I need to prepare a sermon, I will be in that cafe writing a sermon. And there I bumped into an ex-classmate in college, and she gave me a coffee voucher that has 10 plus 1 coffee. So to keep me going, obviously, she's not expecting me to have 10 coffees in one go, of course, but that will last enough for the whole semester. And so she's very kind, and I haven't been to that cafe for quite a long time. And this week gone, because I'm writing the sermon for this morning, I was there again writing. And she was there as well. The difference is this time I'm using the coffee voucher from my wife, which is going to have enough to buy 2 coffees, a lunch and a breakfast. So that was really good. And again, she gave me another coffee voucher. And I think I'm so pleased to receive that again. And we had a conversation. Because we haven't seen each other for so long, she couldn't remember my name. She couldn't remember which church I go to. All she remembered is my face and knowing that I'm there. I used to be there. And we had a conversation, and we talked about different things. And she told me she has gone through something really, really substantial over the past few years. And she hasn't been going to a church because she's needing some space for herself so she can sort things out. And I feel so sad when I heard it. And I said to her, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. But I do want to say this morning, this is no coincidence. We are here having a conversation. I believe there is a purpose here. And I said to her, just a few days ago, I discovered a website, a health support website. It's put together by health professionals, and it's a joint venture by a university and a hospital. It's very evidence-based, very self-directed program at a small cost for some programs, but most of them, I think, well, most of them are small costs. 1 or 2 will be free. And I said to her, this is very good stuff. And I was going through the insomnia program, not because I couldn't sleep, because that one is free, so I can have a look what they're actually putting together. And it was very well presented, very professionally presented, very evidence-based, very self-directed learning. And I said to her, well, that might be the reason why I need to learn about this website. It's to prepare me for this conversation this morning to be with you, to tell you this is what you need. And I think she's very grateful. She took it back and had a look. And that made me wonder, well, what are our purposes in our life? Why we are here, meeting certain people, interacting with certain people? Why God wants us to be there at a particular time to meet with a particular person? And I think if you think about, it can be in the church, it can be at your workplace, can be in the family, can be in your friendship circle, anywhere, maybe in the hospital, anywhere, you've got to ask the question, why you are here. Sometimes our presence in someone's life could be short-term, sometimes it could be long-term. Sometimes your brief appearance in the morning serves a purpose in God, and there's no coincidence with that. And the question is, what is your purpose? For some people, it might be simply being there to be the company. For some people, you might be there because you need to provide some practical help. For some people, maybe the reasons you're there is to tell them life has no coincidence. God always brings people together. There's always opportunity. If you find people who are a bit lost, you are there for a reason. Either maybe get them back to the church, or maybe point them to see where God is. God always brings people together and build connection so you can help one another. So the question is, well, sometimes you are there for someone, sometimes someone is there for you. And there could be a mutual reasons why you need to see someone together. And I think when you think about that, ask yourself one question: what is your purpose in your life? What is your purpose of your presence in someone's life? And what's your purpose in God's plan? And I think these are the questions I really want to find some answers this morning through the sermon based on Philippians chapter 1, which is a letter written by Paul. And this is how the story begins. This is how the letter opens. Paul didn't actually say too much about his imprisonment. He was in the prison at the time when he was writing this letter. There wasn't much talking about how he was treated, what he has actually done for him to land in jail. Nothing is written about that. But what he was saying is the purpose of his imprisonment. He opened the letter by telling people why he is there. What purpose is he serving with his imprisonment? And he didn't tell too much about whether he's angry, sad, or depressed, or has he gone through any emotional turmoils. Nothing has actually said about it. In fact, this particular letter from Paul is full of joy. The theme, rejoice, just go through the whole letter. It's probably one of the happiest writing in the Bible, believe it or not, from a prisoner writing to a church. So he is telling those people, why am I here? Why am I in prison? You know, when we talk about stewarding our life, one very important thing is you must know your purpose. If you know your purpose, you'll be able to steer your life in the right direction. And how you can steward your life is to hold onto your steering wheel, drive through it, regardless of the weather or whether they are detours. You are still driving towards the right direction. And that's what it means by stewarding your life. You've got a direction, but you need to hold firm on your steering wheel before you can actually keep going. And for Paul, his purpose is always to preach the gospel. What is in his mind is he was thinking, well, he's not going to complain about his sufferings. He's not going to complain about his imprisonment. But these are all human emotions, though, because the Bible didn't actually tell us, well, when Paul was in prison, how long did it take for him to come to terms, to relax enough to write a letter to people to tell them the purpose? Because I think it's probably unlikely, first day when he went to jail, he sit down in his jail cell and say, I'm happy, I'm here. This is not going to happen. I think it's just probably unlikely that he sat down there for the first day, for the first moment, I know my purpose. There is a good chance he might have gone through some anger, perhaps some depression, maybe just totally lost and confused while he was there. But the Bible didn't tell us how long did it take him to get to this point, to start to look at why I am here. Is there a purpose? And I think it's probably likely he has gone through that. You know, when life is falling apart, you always go through that grievance process. You might be lost. You're alone and you're scared. It takes years for you to get to some point, and all of a sudden you wonder, oh, I lost everything. You know, families, children, career, health takes time, takes years to build, but it only takes days to demolish. And all of a sudden, you are back to square one, and you wonder, have I ever started before? And that's really hard and heartbreaking for a lot of people. But it does not make you a lesser person than you were, because you're going through what people are going through during suffering. And for Paul, even though he has gone through sufferings, multiple imprisonments, but it doesn't make him a lesser figure in the Bible. He is actually a massive figure in the Bible for the ancient readers, for us as Christians in the modern day, for what he has done. Because he pressed on his purpose. He knows what he is doing. For him, he knows he was chained. He was arrested. But the Bible, the gospel, was never arrested, was never chained. Even though he's locked up, Bible, the gospel was not locked up. He is still there passing the message, preaching the gospel to the people around him. That's why in the jail, the jailer, the prisoners, and the guards, they all turn to Jesus for what Paul has done in the prison. So know the purpose in our life is very, very important for us to steer our life to the right direction and to steward our life through towards the right direction. Without that, you might lose your purpose and strength to keep going. And for Paul, he knows the cause of imprisonment was not God, but the cause of other people turning to Jesus is the cause. That's the reason why he was in prison, is to share the gospel with other people. When you think of imprisonment in modern days, you think of despair, beyond repairs, restraints, non-productive, dark, a jail cell which is very small. But for Paul, when you look at his imprisonment, you start to realize it was very productive. It was very fruitful. And there he was preaching the gospel. He rejoiced when people turn to Jesus. As long as Christ is preached, I rejoice. Does it matter how it is preached? That is his mindset. He preached to the people in the jail, and then people turn to Jesus. That's not wasting time. It's fruitful. It's still fulfilling his purpose. It gladdens his heart. In one of those discouraging circumstances in life, God can use some providential activity to turn things around. So things look really bad in face of adversities. God turns things around to make it fruitful and productive in his way, so more people can share the love of Jesus. For Paul, he really stands like still in face of adversity, but not by himself, with a group of people. Who are that groups of people, you wonder? Now, when he was in jail, he was isolated. There's no visitors. More visitors come, more people go to jail, if you believe in Jesus. So there's no visitors. So how did he get the support from other people? It's actually through prayers. Through his prayers and other people's prayers, pray to him. Physically, they may not be present, but spiritually, through prayers, they're all there. When you are in times of challenges, in troubled time, as much as you want people physically present, as much as you want physical company in your life to give you some hands-on assistance or just be there with you, there are occasions you just can't get anyone with you. There is always a checkpoint in your life. Beyond that checkpoint, you have to sail through adversities yourself. We all learned that really well over the past few years. Think about COVID. If you're in ICU, you're by yourself. You can't have visitors. And even a year after, you still have got that restrictions there. When you are sailing through adversities in your life, beyond certain checkpoint, you've got to be on your own. The only thing you can hang on to is God. His Spirit is with you. And people who cannot visit you, they think of you, they pray for you. Their presence is there. Even though you cannot get a physical company, the spiritual company are there to be with you. And I think this is the reality. We all learn that there will be time you just can't do it. In that scenario, Paul was thinking, well, it's a prayer from the Philippians, the brothers and sisters there, that keep him going, that keep him the spiritual company, even though they cannot be visited. Now, I do want to point out one thing very important in this particular passage about my deliverance, and also about what Paul is doing actually bring part of the deliverance to him. Now, it said Paul in jail keep preaching the gospel. The guards, the jailer, and the inmates all turned to Jesus, right? So think about this. All of a sudden, he got friends there without visitors. Because those people, they are once not believing in God, now become believers. So he has got friends in jail. He's isolated, but now he's got friends in jail because he preached the gospel. Now, I'm not surprised. These friends, the guards and the jailers, they are persons of authority in jail. I won't be surprised they treat him a bit better after they are friends to each other. Here comes, that's a deliverance. That's part of the deliverance. That's part of God's protection. God's deliverance comes in a variety of means. It presents in a different way that you won't believe. And they're spiritual company because they now turn to Jesus, not another faith. There's someone that he can minister to. Early in the year, we have been drumming loud to say, you need to look for a person of peace in your life. Who is a person of peace? A person of peace is those people in your life that God called upon for you to look after, to pray, to walk them through their faith journey, to introduce gospel to them, to help them grow on their faith. And those jailers, those inmates, those guards in prison with Paul, they are his people of peace. And he is there to fulfill his calling, to share the gospel with those people. And that's how God gave him the deliverance as part of it. He served his purpose well, and they turned to Jesus. All of a sudden, he's got a bunch of friends in prison to help him. That's part of God's deliverance. Jail, prison is quite a complicated place. Long time ago, there was a middle-aged adult who shared his story on radio. He was in jail for a year, in a juvenile detention center for a year. And he said the first time when he walked in jail, the first thing he discovered was everyone who was in the jail has served there for longer than a year. So what does it mean is everyone there has done something more substantial than him. So what kind of conversation they're having? Well, they're not talking about how to live a better life. They're talking about how you can get better with your crime so you won't get back to jail again. Wow, when I heard that, my heart sank. This is crazy. In time of adversities, in such a dangerous place, Paul continued to preach the gospel, turn everyone into his friends. And that is part of God's deliverance. God brings healthy, good spiritual company to Paul in time of his adversities by converting people believing in Jesus. So he's got a spiritual company. So he is there for a reason for those people. And those people were there for a reason for Paul. There's a mutual reason why Paul needs to preach the gospel. There's a reason why Paul is in imprisonment. Because the imprisonment is not caused by God, but he is there to advance the gospel. That's why at the beginning of the letter, Paul says his imprisonment served the gospel well. That's what he's trying to tell the Philippians. And that's how God delivered part of his deliverance to him, his salvation, his rescue, his protection to him. Their prayer gives Paul the strength to keep going and preach the gospel. And then, if you look at what Paul has done, he has done basically three things. He stands like still strong in face of adversities. He stands still before God in prayers together with other people. When you are going through challenges, you should never do it by yourself. You always have people around you. Life is much better when you have a community backing you up. In Paul's case, the Philippians pray for him. Their spiritual company is there. So talking about the Spirit of God, he has got the Spirit of God because he's a believer. But now he's got more Spirit of God because everyone has turned to Jesus. The next one I want to talk about is stand with a steadfast faith. When you look at how he finished his letter, he said, for to me, Paul, to live is Christ and to die is gain. Now, Paul was playing words there. So Christ is Christos, gain is kerdos. What in Greek, Paul is using these two words who sound really, really similar to tell the audience, well, to live or to die, perceptually to him is the same. So either one way or the other, he didn't lose anything. So what Paul is saying to the audience is, well, for him to live is good, very good. To die is also good. It doesn't matter either way. That's why he said, I'm torn between the two. It's really difficult to choose when those things are perceived very similar. For Paul, to live his purpose is continue to bring people to Jesus. This is good because that's his purpose. To die, for in the Jewish mindset, they know if they die, their spirit will rest somewhere else before the bodily resurrection. So there's got to be peace anyway, but dying meaning ending of sufferings, meaning coming to comfort and peace. Now, even if Paul chooses the latter, it's not selfish. It's just the way it is. But what he has done is he's opted for a selfless approach. He would rather live, because if he lives, more people can turn to Jesus. He can fulfill his purpose. He actually say to die is far better. It's better by miles, he said. But he didn't opt for the better option, because for him, opting for the better option is good, but it didn't serve his purpose. And hence, when he concludes his letter, he said, I am convinced I'm going. I will be leaving the jail, and I will be seeing the Philippians in the churches again, and we will be enjoying the joy, and because he has the joy in his faith, which is pistis. It means faithfulness, trust, confidence. He trusts if God has a purpose for him, there's got to be a door open. So for him, he is not wanting to die if all the people of peace are still alive. You get that? People of peace are those people for him to serve. He's saying, I'm not going to die first before they die. If I have unfinished business, I'm going to leave the jail. I'm going out there to reach out to them and get them back to Jesus and help them grow in faith. I think he's taking faith to the next level. He offered an option that will not take away suffering. He would rather stay in jail for as long as it's required. So everyone in jail there, those 24/7 friends, will believe in Jesus and advance on their faith. But he's not opting for a more comfortable option, which is to die. And he knows in reality it's far better option. He has a very selfless purpose in his life. And I think that's amazing. Ask yourself a question, have you got unfinished business with the people around you? Is there a purpose there? You know God has called you there. You just cannot go. And that's the reason that gives you the strength to keep going and keep living. And this is how he concluded the letter. He said, well, that gives me sufficient courage. Christ will be honored in my body, whether death or life. Whether it's Christos to live or whether it's Kurdos to die, it doesn't matter. It's similar. As long as you can serve the purpose for the sake of others, people turn to Jesus. That's what he wants. So basically, 3 messages, 3 points I want you to take home this morning, learning from Paul. How we might be able to steward our life in face of challenges, different situations, difficulties, is we need to hold on to 3 pillars in our life. Live a purpose-driven life. Ask yourself one question. What is your purpose in someone's life? Why you are there with a particular person at a particular time for a particular conversation? Why are you helping this person? Why are you there? It's very important for us to ask that question. It's a selfless reason for us to be there because God called us to reach out to those people of peace so they may turn to Jesus, so they may experience the greatness of God. And you are part of God's plan to fulfill that purpose. And I think that is very clear for Paul. In jail, he would have gone through a very difficult time. But yet, it doesn't take away his mission to fulfill the purpose. He would have gone through those ups and downs in his life, but he's still there helping. The second thing is prayer-driven. We need to live a life that is prayer-driven. You know, when life is falling apart, when things are not going your way, you feel really down, you feel sad, you feel lonely, you feel scared, you feel you're running out of death. But God is there through different people around you. Pray hard. Ask people to pray for you. People can be here with you spiritually. You've got a lot of spiritual company if people pray for you. God's deliverance is very unusual, unexpected. In Paul's case, all of a sudden, everyone in jail is part of the Christ community. It's part of God's family. God sends company to you in a very unexpected way. Even if you need space for yourself, God to ask people to pray for you. Live for a prayer-driven life. And that's where Paul finds strength to say, to live is Christos. To die is Kurdos. It's the same. It doesn't matter. Provided that you've got the strength, that's where he found the strength to keep going. The third pillar, this I have to explain, is I actually want to write faith-driven, but I was determined to get the P word in, so I put the pistis instead. That works anyway. So, to be pistis-driven, faith-driven, you need to be convinced there is a purpose in your life. God wants you to do something. If God asks you to do something, doors got to be open. He got to prepare things for you to keep going. In Paul's case, he believed at the end of his letter, he said clearly he is getting out of jail. There's no challenge about that. He's telling the Philippians recipient, I am going to see you soon. Basically, that's what he's saying. He is going to get out of jail. He knows that, even though it hasn't happened. We are not quite sure how long he was in jail at the end, because the letter didn't actually say which imprisonment we are talking about. He has gone through to the prison a few times, actually, but we don't actually know. All we know is at time of writing, he was so confident he will come out. Now, that's not an indicator of self-sufficiency. He has faith. It's a faith-dependent confidence. He believes God will get him out, for however it translates. So I think if you are holding on to these three pillars in life, you'll be able to steward your life regardless of the situation. You'll be able to hold firm the steering wheels to keep driving to the right direction regardless of the weather, regardless of the detours that you might encounter. You'll be able to make the right choices, to be with the right people, and to find the strength and hope to keep moving forward, even though life could be very, very challenging. And I think it's because of these three pillars, when Paul was in imprisonment, he knew, well, to live is much better. Christos is much better, even though the Kados is a much better option in reality, but he still perceived, stay there, keep living, keep fulfilling his purpose is the way to go.